Welcome back to Renovate Building Faith and Family. I'm Brian Sanders.
And I'm Scott Johanningsmeyer.
So today we kind of want to talk a little bit about what some of the hardest parts of the project are. Scott, why don't you go first? You were talking a little bit about your dining at room addition here.
Yeah, there was something that, and I don't know why I did it this way, but as I was doing this addition on the back of the house, obviously you have to have a foundation. And
It was always
so,
good, always good.
always good.
Yes.
So, I, and I wanted to do this. This was something I wanted to do. I wanted to do as much of this project by myself or, with help of family, dad, different people, but I didn't want to hire out contractors. This was something I wanted to do. So I dug the foundation myself, which
But by hand, or did you rent equipment?
I did it by hand because I'm an idiot.
But you can rent equipment. You're allowed to do
Rent
that.
equipment, yes. And part of it was I couldn't really get equipment to part of it because we had to tear down a sunroom that had a concrete slab for a floor. It wasn't, foundation quality, but it was just a thick. So I did have to get a jackhammer and bust up part of that. And so I couldn't really get equipment there to dig for the foundation at that point. So I had to do that part by hand. So I ended up doing the entire thing by hand. And that was exhausting.
That would be a hard part of the project. Yeah,
it was great. I love doing it. And it's one of those moments when I really felt like, okay, this is my project and I'm taking ownership. Those moments where something's really hard and you're pushing through and you're, really going through there, and it gives you ownership over the project. But oh my goodness, was it hard? Tree roots. I mean, everything. I've dug post holes for fences before.
Yeah.
Using the post hole digger and really getting in there, but never have I had to do this because it's not just a simple, little 6-8 inch hole.
No.
This is a big foundation. It had to be wide enough for that where I could get in there. And that
What was that, 12 by 12 room you added, or was it bigger?
It was 12 by 16.
12 by 16.
12 by 16. So,
three sides.
Yeah, so 3 sides. It was against the house. So fortunately, that was one of them was already done. So yeah, I had to come out 12 over 16 and back in 12, and to make it. So it was, just with a pickaxe and everything, just up there busting up the dirt, trying to get through the tree roots, trying to do all this stuff, and really moving. And that's a lot of dirt. Putting it in wheelbarrow, putting it somewhere else, dumping it on, all this stuff. But there was, I forget exactly how long it took, but there was.
You're not still doing it, actually, but
yeah. But there was something, and I talk about this because there was something that happened that I never expected with this. And I don't think I would have realized it if I was using machine or equipment to do it, but it occurred when I was doing it by hand. When I got down to the depth that I was planning on digging, that I needed to dig to, actually, I think I went a little deeper than what the official requirement is, but a good
cross line,
a good standard practice for it. Something interesting happened. So I've been using the pickaxe, just getting in there, and as I'm going, dirt's flying and busting up. When I hit that mark, the pickaxe stopped. I hit the dirt ground there and just broke off little chunks. That was the hardest ground I've ever seen. And as I started spreading out all along this at that layer, it was like that everywhere. As I'm just there, I could not bust it up. I barely scratched it. And as I'm going through and I'm clearing this out, it almost created a flat surface at the depth that I needed because the ground was so hard. And I never understood what it meant to have a firm foundation until that moment.
Yeah.
You know, it was really cool because here I was just pouring sweat, you know, even though it was, you know, February, March when I was doing this. But it was one of those moments where I could step back and say, I get it. I get what this means. What we build on, what we build upon gives us the strength for our project. For building a room addition from the ground up, I need that foundation to be strong.
Yes.
And here it was. And it was just, even now as I'm thinking about it, you know, wow, 6 years later, it was, wow, that was just absolutely incredible to think about that. And then I could, you know, pour the concrete on there and build up the foundation that way. But knowing that underneath all of that, I didn't have to worry about the ground I was building upon.
Oh yeah. Well, and you know, doing construction professionally, that's one of those things that if we don't have firm foundation, and you can't tell. I mean, you can dig 100 feet and you'll be right where you need to be, and then that last 15 feet, you know, it's bad soil, and there's a lot of times where we pay the money, or the owner pays the money to get that firm foundation. That means getting rid of that excess soil. It means adding a caisson, which is really really deep foundation, just a big pier. You know, it's finding that foundation. Once you have that, you can go up.
Yeah.
But that foundation will also limit future expansion. Because if you put a foundation for a house, you're not building a 5-story building on top of that.
Yeah.
You know, you need to have the right foundation for what you're building.
Yeah. It's funny you were talking about that. I was talking with Lisa, my sister, and she, you know, that's what she does. She analyzes concrete and dirt and ground sand. She's told me of times where she's had to go up to the GC on a site and be like, hey, you have to stop the project because the ground you're building upon is not safe.
Yeah.
She said she wasn't too popular that day. I can imagine that, you know, but it's one of those things of you have to be able to build upon something strong.
Oh yeah. So yeah, if you don't have that right foundation, you're not gonna last.
Yeah. And you know, and the same, you know, obviously true in life. You know, what do we build upon? Yeah, it was a lot of hard work building, you know, digging out that foundation. By far the hardest thing I've ever done in any construction project, any renovation. You know, it was exhausting and backbreaking, but at the end it was something good and strong. And as we're looking at the foundations that we build upon in our life, it's the same way. It is hard and requires a lot of work to build upon. But when you have that good foundation underneath that you're building upon, it makes it that much better.
Yeah. Well, and I think, you know, one of the things the purpose of starting this was building family and faith, is we both had a great foundation to start with. You know, our shared grandma and grandpa, they were often prayed for us. They were very, church going people, very spiritual, religious, I mean, so they laid that foundation for us long before we even knew it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't necessarily know your other side of the family that well, but I know that there's a good family connection there. Same with mine. It's family was a very strong foundation for both of us on both sides of our family.
Yeah. And all the years of work, where we do this stuff now, but just thinking about the years of work that our parents put in, that our grandparents put in, even their parents put in, just seeing that, how it builds that hard process, the struggles, the times that you go through, but those moments where you can step back and say, that's it. It's like at at Grandpa's funeral, I said, Grandpa never told us or gave us advice. He never told us what to do. I can't really remember a time he said, Scott, here's something you need to do. Here's, but he
Yeah.
lived it.
Oh yeah.
He lived it, and we got to watch and we got to see it. And that shaped it.
Yeah. You say talking about advice. I remember when I first started working with Grandpa, 10 years old, roofing the house. He explained, you put the shingle here, here's exactly where you line it up. And here's why I put 4 nails in and exactly where I put the nails in. And just a shingle. Here's how it works. And if you do it right, it's going to last you a long time. Mm-hmm. And just sometimes it's simple as your foundation just needs to be, hey, put in 4 nails and don't put them too low. Put them up a little bit, just a little bit higher so they're hidden under the next shingle.
Yeah.
Just finding that foundation to build on.
Yeah. And, and especially now, as parents, we're building the foundation for our kids. And, there's times where I wonder, or I feel like, gosh, man, this is just going to crumble, when the kids are crazy and all this stuff. Yeah. But I'm building upon the foundation that was built for me.
Yep.
And to keep that going. And that's something that I got to keep in mind, that even in the crazy moments, even in the times where it's an absolute struggle, and there are plenty of those, I can think about it and I can remember that, I dug using a shovel and a pickaxe for weeks to dig out this foundation for the dining room. The hardest thing I've ever done. And the same has to apply to this. I have to fight for it. I have to work, and I have to keep it going so that the foundation for them can be just as strong.
Yep. Yeah. And at some point they have to build their own foundation. They you lay the groundwork, but they have to continue it.
Yeah.
And that's part of laying the foundation, is teaching them how to continue.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the point you were really hitting on a few minutes ago, talking about, how Grandma and Grandpa were, always praying for us,
Yeah.
We didn't really know it. I mean, we kind of knew, but we never really grasped the depth that they were, and as kids, you never think about your grandparents are fun, and, they give you cookies, and there were always cookies, and,
play games with you. And
yes. Yeah. They play games, and you can play hide and seek in their house, and, all that stuff. But the hard work that they were putting in, it's really humbling thinking about that. But they did that so that we could build our own foundations.
Yeah. Well, and the thing about foundations is usually they're not seen.
That's true.
That they're, foundations are meant to be hidden. It's the things that you do that nobody sees that builds those foundations.
Yeah, that's a real good point. That never really crossed my mind. Here I am talking about this hard work, and when I'm talking about everything with it, I see it in my head because I did it.
But you don't walk out and dig up a hole and say, look what I did here for the foundation.
There's times I've wanted to be like, how hard this was? But yeah,
and then you remembered how hard it was, and you don't want to dig the hole again.
Yeah, that is, yeah. But that's a very good point, because these unseen things that shape us, we live in a world. I mean, here we are talking about it. We live in a world where we share everything, instant access to just about everything, and we can do this. But someday when we move out of this house, anybody that comes and looks at this house, buys it, is not going to look at there and think about this foundation. They're not going to look at it and say, yeah, that was a lot of hard work. it's a room, it's a foundation.
They're going to take a look, say, is it solid? And that's all they really care.
Yeah.
They don't care what effort went into it.
Yeah. But that is, in my opinion, a defining feature of that room.
Oh, yeah.
And in our lives, it's a defining feature of who we are. You know, that thought that and, you know, you see it in memes and posts and everything, you know, that, you know, integrity is what you do when nobody's looking.
Yeah.
You know, the foundation is the things you do to build yourself up that nobody else sees.
Mm-hmm.
That's,
yeah.
I like where you took that. That's, I mean, that was a good thought that I hadn't even thought about till you mentioned that. And I guess it's because you do more of the commercial stuff. And so you think about the foundations and stuff more than I do even.
Yeah. I mean, I've did one project. We did, I think 35 caissons in 12,000 square feet, you know, or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, and those were all caissons were 20, 30 foot deep. So
I bet they didn't dig those by hand.
No. They had a machine, took care of that real quick.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So yeah, the foundations we build upon. I mean, it's hard work, but it's so worth it. It's
so definitely worth it.
And it will change and shape and really direct how the project goes.
Yep.
Because once I built that foundation and built it up, more than just digging the spot for it, then I was able to build it up. Then that also affected how the visible part, the room itself, how high it was, where it lined up with the house, all that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That just, I mean, I could probably sit here all day and talk about that foundation and the way, because it was such a vital point. And it took, you know, yes, it took the longest amount of work just doing it, but it also took the most amount of planning when I was building it back up. How high do I need to build it back up to get it to line up right with the house? Because then to avoid where the power lines come into the house, make sure I got the right clearance, all this stuff was all shaped by the foundation.
Yep. What you did that nobody sees determines where you can how you can build, what you can build.
Yeah. And I don't know, you know, people watching this, they're not going to build a foundation now. They're like, oh man, I heard those stories. I'm not going to do that. That's crazy. But no, it was definitely, I would do it all over again. I really would. Well, maybe if I was 5 years, 6 years younger now.
Maybe use equipment this time
maybe
instead of a shovel.
We'll see.
Yeah.
But it was definitely worth it, and definitely one of those things I'll never forget. So
yeah.
So hopefully we've got the people who are watching thinking about their foundations, about the things that have helped build and shape them, just like we've been thinking and reflecting on the things that have shaped us, the people, the things that we've been through that have really brought us to this moment of where we are and how we're still continuing to build upon those foundations and helping to shape the foundations.
Well, and maybe somebody listening needs to start a new foundation.
That is true.
You know, maybe the old foundation is old and falling apart. Maybe you need to start a new one.
Yeah. So hopefully you've gotten a lot out of this. I love these talks where we can really dive in and really analyze it and how it shapes and builds upon us. And hopefully you've enjoyed this too, and we will see you next time and continue to renovate.